So, here with a prescription for a healthy city. Please join with me in welcoming to the podium Dr. Eric Walsh.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you guys for coming out. I want to thank our esteemed mayor for having me here today, and the committee. I really enjoyed talking with you guys as we set this up. I also want to thank a group that often doesn't get thanked, and that are my colleagues on the executive leadership team at the city of Pasadena. I know it sounds funny, but these are very hardworking people who really put the city first, really work hard to make the city better. So I really want to make sure I recognize them for all the hard work they do. I also want to recognize the city council. I want to say that the city council has actually helped me to really strengthen my belief in American democracy. And it's watching how they work together to make things happen and to really do what's best for the city really has emboldened my passion for this country and for what we do. But I thank the city council as well for all the hard work that they put in. With that said, we're going to get into our talk. And I was given this topic, the prescription for a healthy city. But I like the topic because I want to take us somewhere with this. And I'm going to start off in the book of Luke, the 19th chapter. And don't worry, this is not a sermon. But, you know, a little Bible at a prayer breakfast probably doesn't hurt. In Luke 19, the 41st verse, the Bible is speaking of Jesus, and it says, when he approached Jerusalem, he saw the city and he wept over it, saying, if you had known in this day, even you, the things which make for peace, but now they have been hidden from your eyes. Jesus is sitting above, looking down at the beautiful city of Jerusalem, a city whose name literally means peace. As he looks at the city and he realizes what is to come upon the city, like most cities in world history, Jerusalem really is no different, except that it is a holy city by three of the major religions in the world. He looks down and he recognizes that peace has left the city. It's occupied at this time by the Roman Empire, and Rome eventually is going to fight the uprisings that continue to happen in Jerusalem. And as he looks at the city, he weeps. And there are only 2 times in the Bible that Jesus is recorded to have wept. This is one of them. And the other time, of course, is outside of the tomb of Lazarus. And the reason Jesus weeps both times isn't because he can't fix the problem. In fact, he's about to raise Lazarus from the dead as he cries. But he weeps because Jesus cannot stand to see men suffer. He can't stand the pain. And as he, in his prophetic eye, looks down through history and sees all of the suffering that would come to earth, represented by the dead Lazarus, as Jesus looks at it, he cries. So I ask you today, what makes for a healthy city? Well, there are a lot of things that we do. And so Forbes produces a list of healthy cities, and they use some of these things to predict it. And Washington, D.C. has won 2 years in a row. And in 2010, Washington, D.C. dropped down to number 2. And Minneapolis, Minnesota jumped up to number 1. There's a picture here. And some of the things that they say make for a healthy city are open spaces, walking and biking trails, the health of individuals, quality health care services, access to fresh fruits and vegetables. All our low smoking rates are very important. Low rates of certain diseases. All of these things are factored in, and they come up with these lists. And they say, these are the healthiest cities in America. And of course, all of these things are critically important. And in fact, I love this city because the city has most of these things in place. But it's interesting because even though D.C. wins 2 years in a row and comes up second in the third year, when you look at a train map of the city of Washington, D.C., and some of you have seen me show this before, if you start down here in the southeast corner of the city, you have one of the poorest, most violent neighborhoods in all of the United States of America. If you move out into the suburbs here in Maryland, what you find are that you find some of the most affluent, most prosperous neighborhoods in America. For every mile you travel from the Capitol Heights station in the southeast section of D.C., life expectancy increases by 1.5 years as you travel out to Maryland. For every mile you travel. In fact, the average suburbanite near the Shady Grove station will live 20 years longer than the typical city dweller around Capitol Heights. And they won the healthiest city 2 years in a row. You see, because when we gauge health, sometimes we focus on things that seem to make a lot of sense, but being truly healthy is so much deeper than what your hemoglobin A1C is. Has a lot more to do with the average blood pressure of a city. And what I really want to bring to you is the next dimension in health. Where do you go to get beyond simply the rigors of numbers? And at the University of Miami in medical school, they taught me that you don't treat numbers, you treat patients. People run up to me all the time. It's only one of the bad things about people knowing I'm a doctor in the city is I literally will be out to eat somewhere and someone will sit next to me and say, you know, my cholesterol was checked and it's 300. So what else might make a healthy city? There are those that argue it's transportation systems. It's the skyline, economic growth, or affluent neighborhoods that such a city is a healthy city. But we know from cities like Los Angeles and New York and Chicago that you can have all of those things and still have sections of town that are devoid of health and of prosperity. In fact, if you look around the world, cities like Mexico City and Santiago and Chile are cities that have these incredible splits in who's who in the city. So if we speak about then the built environment, again, Jesus in Mark 13, verse 1, he says, as he was going out of the temple, one of his disciples said to him, Teacher, behold, what wonderful stones and what wonderful buildings. And Jesus said to them, do you see these great buildings? Not one stone will be left upon another which will not be torn down. One of the great privileges I had, now, my mother was a single mother, and we grew up